Welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where today we know Yellowjackets. My name is Grace, but of course, I'm not alone. I'm here with the wonderful Jess Sterling. Jess, how you doing?
Good. I'm putting my tinfoil hat securely on my head, and I am ready to talk through some Yellow Jackets theories today. I'm really excited.
I love your tinfoil hat. It's so
Oh, thank
nice.
you.
Yeah, I wish I had one of my own. My brain is getting fried.
Oh no. Well, I guess mine would get extra fried, I suppose. Like if I, kind of like a
Just don't
potato.
put your head in a microwave.
Yeah, will not. I'll try not to.
I'm always telling you, don't do that.
You do have to tell me a little too often not to put my head in a microwave.
All right, we're halfway through Yellowjackets, Jess. We have recapped all 5 episodes. People should make sure that they have listened or not, whatever. Live your life. But it'd be great if you did. If you did either subscribe to the We Know Scripted TV feed, WeKnowScriptedTV.com. There's a specific Yellowjackets feed you could be subscribed to, and we are of course on YouTube. And no spoilers, Jess. I won't confirm or deny anything, but
Mm-hmm.
there is some fun stuff in the works that you and I have cooking in terms of bonus Yellowjackets content. So let me tease that,
Yeah.
Jess.
I'm so thrilled. Like the most thrilled I could probably be beyond a few other things that would thrill me more. So
Yeah.
let's throw that out there. Get excited. Get ready. Keep your eyes and ears open because you're gonna be hearing more from us and you're gonna be excited.
All right, I'll tell them. We killed Lottie. I'll tell them.
We did it.
We've been working on it. We
We've
did
been
it.
busted.
Gotcha, Lottie. This is for not bringing Nicole Main. This was for Taryn for not bringing Nicole Maines back on the show. That's what we did.
Yes, exactly.
All
We
right.
had to right the
Well,
wrong.
you have to be subscribed. You have to tell a friend, all of that good stuff, because we're halfway through. 5 more episodes to go of Yellowjackets. Jess, quick check-in before we theorize and ponder. How you feeling about Yellowjackets season 3?
I'm really liking it. I don't know, Grace, you and I we're in a really interesting position in that we watch these episodes prior to really knowing what the general public feels, thinks about the episodes, right?
That's not a complaint. We're very lucky.
We are
Not a
very
complaint.
lucky. I'm
Yes,
very
but
appreciative. But it does bring us to this interesting point where then, we come on, we chat about it, we get excited about it. I usually come away feeling very good about an episode. There was one I was a little more critical of, I would say, but for the most part, I'm really loving season 3. I feel like it is a vast improvement over season 2. Um, I don't know that the general public agrees with that sentiment. I've seen some people feeling like season 3, where is it going? What is it doing? Maybe that's just kind of par for the course of a mystery box television show. People may always feel that way when they're not done with the season yet because anything they're setting up that they may then answer later on in the season, well, we haven't gotten there yet. But Grace, overall, I would say I'm very satisfied with what we've gotten so far. I feel like we are just leaning all the way in, no brakes, they've been cut on this van, and we're just enjoying the ride. How about you? What do you feel, Grace?
yeah, I'm liking it a lot, and I actually think that one of the things this show does have going for it to a degree, and feel free to scold me if this is I guess I'll be scolded if it's a hot take, which is I think this show is also benefiting greatly from being released at a time of there being immensely good television on right now between Severance and The White Lotus and The Pit and Paradise and all of this stuff that is currently airing. And I feel like Yellowjackets to me is like right up there in terms of the top of the thing. But we're talking a little bit about sort of doing some digging and maybe not finding like as much sort of theorizing as maybe we wanted. And I do think probably the show is being I do think it's like a very high quality show that is also different than all of those other things. Like it is a mystery box show, but it's not Severance. I think it's a very good character show, but it's not The White Lotus, And so I think that it is sort of carved out its own niche in a way that I think it's really living up to that. And so far, I think probably season 3 is stronger than season 2. And here's my other thing I'll say is I think that these are showrunners who have learned from having made 2 seasons of the show, and it also doesn't have any of the lows of season 1, which is very clearly the Shauna and Adam stuff. So it's
Right.
like kind of, I think that like the base level of this is like, probably hit higher highs, and we're only halfway through. I think season 1 maybe hit higher highs, like it starts off so rapidly,
Mhm.
intensely. Season 2, I think, takes a little bit to like get going. Season 3, I think, is in a really good place to be like where it is halfway through the show. So
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think I hadn't taken into account the fact that there are so many good shows on at the moment. It really is, and not that it's airing at the same time. Yellow Jackets missed the memo that like everything is airing on Thursday nights, and they decided to grace us with a Friday night release, thankfully.
mhm,
But there's a lot on right now and a lot of good TV on right now. So I wouldn't
yeah.
blame anyone if they're sleeping on Yellow Jackets a little bit, just because I think there are shows with more marketing, more maybe not more buzz, because the show, is Yellow Jackets after all, but certainly being talked about, more water coolery shows that people are focusing on. But I don't want this to get lost in that, because there's so much to love about season 3. And I think you're right. I think it's carved out its own little place where people can appreciate it, because it is very different from anything that's on television currently. And I'm so excited that one of my favorite things about this show, Grace, and it always has been, the fact that we can theorize so much about it. It brings me back to those like lost message board days.
Yes. I wasn't on the lost message boards, but I knew they existed. Um, all right. Well, I feel like I want to start in terms of a thing that I have said every week is the thing that I want to be happening on this show.
Mhm.
Where is Hilary Swank? For real, though, for real, where is Hilary Swank? Who is Hilary Swank? I feel like there is this very obvious idea that she is, I think they're like, these are very well connected, that she is the person stalking Shauna. And as a result, she is Melissa, because Melissa's been introduced as Shauna's romantic interest in the 90s
Mhm.
storyline. Would make sense that we have not seen Melissa in the modern day time, and that perhaps it's Melissa and she is, potentially out for, some revenge or something. She sent the tape. Callie got the tape, intercepted it. My thing here is that the longer we go with this being a show where we do not see Hilary Swank, the more I feel like the most obvious answer of it's Melissa and Hilary Swank is the stalker stalking Melissa makes me feel like it's less likely to be true, because why are we dragging it out?
Exactly. I think this is something that people latched onto when we saw the trailer come out. People were
People
zooming in
latched
on
onto it when the trailer came out. Yeah, that's right. I was about to make a point and then I was like, oh no,
I
sorry for
agree with you
interrupting you.
wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
um no, I think people zoomed in on Hilary Swank's eyes, right? They're like, oh, she's wearing color contacts. Is she wearing blue contacts to be more like Melissa? People who aren't as bullish on Hilary Swank being Melissa have said maybe she's related to Melissa. Maybe she is like Melissa's sister or something. Now I found a theory on Reddit by the user Into the Wild YJ96. Now, they missed opportunity there at the numbers at the end, but they posited
For
that
what? For
perhaps
what? For what?
it could have been
YJ96. For what
69.
one?
Could have been 69.
How dare you?
Maybe 1996. Maybe that's why.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
But this person posited that maybe Hilary Swank is actually someone who is Shauna Stalker, has burned the cabin, was possibly Javi's friend, and possibly Travis's killer, all wrapped into one. So this person is a menace to society.
Like multiple people in a trench coat? Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
And this person, Into the Wild, YJ96, posited possibly it's Laura Lee. And they
This
have
is
like photos of Hillary Swank
crazy.
and Laura Lee up next to each other. I'm kind of obsessed with this theory,
This is a
Grace.
crazy theory, Jess. Laura
Mhm.
Lee, the woman who died in a plane? I don't know how
But
that
did
makes
she
sense.
die? Did
What?
she die? We know the rules, Grace. What's the rule in television?
Yeah, because her body was blown into a million pieces. The rule is if
Maybe.
you don't see the body, that's the rule, in case
Exactly.
people are wondering. I'm sure you were all
Now,
yelling it.
this
It's not
person
Laura Lee. It's not Laura
listen,
Lee.
hear this person out. Hear this person out. Laura Lee jumps out of the plane before it explodes, or she somehow survives the plane flight, right? She gets to the shore, she finds the caves, is living off of military rations. Then Doom coming happens. Javi disappears. We're flashing all the way back, bringing us all the way back to season 1. Okay. Javi disappears. Javi discovers Laura Lee in the caves. She is the friend Javi refers to that, like, us and probably many others have surmised as possibly other Ty, like maybe, but
Mhm.
in this person's brain, that is Laura Lee. They are the friend. They live together. They're eating rations. Then they run out of food. Now, they run back to camp, see everyone just feasting. Jackie is just full on cremated. They bump into the
Oh, full on
tree.
cremated, just like Laura Lee.
Yeah. They are the ones who caused the snow to fall on Jackie. They run away. Then they eventually come back, see the people eating Jackie. They're real disturbed, especially because this is one of my favorite parts of this theory. Laura Lee is really disturbed because she's religious, not just because they're
Hey,
eating
hey,
Jackie.
hey. Oh, she's disturbed. Oh, I thought, okay, hold on. Retake that. I thought you said she is disturbed because she is religious, not she's
No.
disturbed because she is religious and she's seeing something that she would be
Yes.
disturbed
Sorry.
due to religion. It sounded like you were a little blasphemous in terms of like,
No, no,
and
no.
Laura Lee is a crazy person because she's religious. It's like, obviously, like, oh, yeah. No, okay, yeah,
No.
yeah, no,
Yeah, so
got it.
she is like, "Whoa, this is really bad." And so then they go back to the
Wow, your
caves.
Laura Lee impression is getting so good.
Thank you. Laura Lee makes Javi swear, like, don't go talking to them, hence his silence. Now, this person also then thinks Lottie then finds Laura Lee. She's hallucinating, blah blah blah. We have the whole cave entrance thing, right? We've talked a lot about this, like the hatch in Lottie's vision, and how Laura Lee is there, and it looks very similar to the scene of the crime where Lottie dies. On and on and on. Now, we've also seen Ben talking to someone, Coach Ben talking to someone in the caves.
Do you
This
think the
person,
more you explain it, the more I'll be convinced?
not at all. No. But I do love it. I love that, like, this person has checked all their boxes, because it's like, okay, Ben then is talking to someone in the caves. Obviously, that's also Laura Lee. And this person thinks Laura Lee is the one who set fire to the cabin because all the girls are, like, mean and bad and morally corrupt and are eating people. Uh and so, yeah, apparently this person thinks that Laura Lee survived, but none of the Yellow Jackets know that Laura Lee survived.
This is my impression of a teacher who's grading this person's homework, which is like, oh yeah, they
Mhm.
crossed the T, they from the I, dot the I, they did all of their work, they checked all of these, but it's great, and then somehow they got to the wrong answer. That's my impression. It's fun. It's very fun. I don't think it's. I don't think it's. I don't think it's. I think it's true, but it's fun. It's gets fun to think about. I don't mean to
Yeah,
be
that's
so
how I
dismissive.
felt. That's
Yeah.
how I felt. I felt like, you know what? I've seen so many Hillary Swank as Melissa theories. Like, everyone thinks that. I thought it would be really fun if, what if Laura Lee was still hanging out there? What if?
Well, I mean, yeah. Is there okay? So, like, if gambling is all the rage these days, I watch a lot of sports, and every time they're like, "Hey, you want to gamble?" Which I thought was illegal, but it's fine. They're like, "You can gamble." Um, I think current odds are like you shouldn't put any money on Hillary Swank being Melissa because you'll make no money. If you bet like $20, you'll win
Yes.
like $2. The odds. I don't really know.
Yes.
Every time they're like -100, I'm like, sure,
I don't know how any of
sure,
that
yeah.
works.
Um, Vote for Laura, like putting odds that it's Laura Lee is extremely high. I think like you'd get a great return on that. Are there any
Mhm.
other, and I guess maybe this is where I'll interject, and I was gonna do this a little bit later, but I would like to play a game with you, Jess Sterling.
I would love to play a game.
It is the not dead draft.
The
Okay.
not dead draft.
Yes,
Okay.
we are going to well, maybe we'll pick 2 to 3 people each who we think are still alive in the modern day time and so did not die in the 90s. And
Okay.
so who could show up in the modern day timeline?
I love this.
Laura, I'm assuming you want to take Laura Lee as your number one overall pick.
Absolutely not.
Oh, weird. Strange. So I'm just gonna try to pull up let me just pull up the Yellowjackets team. Let me just see who we know.
And this is actually, while you're doing that, I can bring up a theory that I have seen everywhere. Everyone's talking about this, and I think they call it the pomegranate theory, if I'm remembering correctly. And it is basically, and we've talked about this a little bit, Grace, where if someone eats or drinks in a vision or hallucination or something else, they are pegged for death. They are marked for death. We have many, many examples. Jackie drinking the hot cocoa and then dying. Shauna's baby, when he finally latches, then she wakes up and he is dead. There's a lot of examples of this. Lottie not partaking in any sort of food or beverage when she has her hallucination at the mall with the other Yellowjackets. So we have a lot of instances of this. And therefore I do think it's interesting to now make a non-death draft, because it's like, okay, well, who hasn't partaken in any food or beverage? Coach Ben, another notable option.
He didn't eat the nice fish. I think that there are 8 people who we can put, and there's 2 of them who are like, I believe, like unnamed, other than like people do know their names. I don't think it's ever been uttered on the show somehow. We have Robin and Britt, who are 2 people who are out there. Otherwise, we have Coach Ben, Akilah, Mari, Melissa, Jen, and then I'm going to put Crystal and Laura Lee together as like 2 possibilities, because technically if we're saying Laura Lee is alive, we could also potentially say Crystal is alive.
Sure.
Let's pick 2 people each, and you can go first. So who is still alive? Who will not die in the 90s storyline?
Okay. I'm going to swing big here, because so many people are like, this is Pit Girl. She is Pit Girl. Blah, blah, blah. Give me Mari. What if she doesn't die? Everyone thinks she's going to die. Shauna's probably going to stab her. What if she doesn't? What if she makes it?
Yeah, I think that's a good. Everyone thinks she's Pit Girl. She like is sort of, they tease us with like, we have It Girl, episode 1 title. She falls into a pit, does not die. Pretty good guess. I guess the only other person that it can probably be then is like Jen, right? Or I guess I'm doing this backwards. I guess what we're saying is like, there could be other people who want, like, you know, who wind up out there, who could be like, maybe we've never met Pit Girl yet. Like maybe she's never been on the show. We are more saying we do not think Mari will be there's a chance that Mari's not Pit Girl, and therefore she could be alive in the modern day. I will take Coach Ben. Coach Ben has been near death so many times that by now, if he dies, that's wild. So I will take Coach Ben as my second overall pick, because I think the fact that he continues not to die is potential evidence that maybe he'll just be out there. And I guess we should say not dead draft. I guess what I'm saying is like, did they in some way make it out of? Is this different? Should we clarify this? Made it out of the wilderness doesn't mean they're alive, right? Because I think the other piece of this that matters is like the Shauna. I think there's a chance that like, in terms of like covering up what happened, the way that they were able to go so long before like things start to unravel, is that like, was somebody killing like Travis, for example? Like if we were doing this at the beginning of the show, like you'd probably say Travis didn't die out in the wilderness, but then he did die.
I think, I think we're clarifying that this is a draft of people who don't die in the wilderness. They still could die in the present timeline. And to your point, and a lot of other people's point of, but what did they do when they get back? Like, what were they up to? Is it possible Coach Ben made it back and then they offed him after the fact, right? To keep him quiet. Who knows? But you're positing he did not die in the wilderness. I like this pick because I just feel like so many times Coach Ben has been so close to death and hasn't died yet. He's similar to Van, where it's like, will they ever die? Probably not. So yeah, I like this pick. I like this pick very much.
All right. Do you want to take the next pick?
Yeah. Can you reset who's left on the board here?
Akilah, Melissa, who I can't believe neither of us picked with 1 and 2, Jen, Crystal, Laura Lee, and then the 2 not unnamed, Robin and Britt, are sort of these like extra Yellowjackets.
Yeah, I gotta go Melissa here, right?
No,
I think if Hillary Swank is Melissa, and there she is, you know, backwards hat and all. Will Hillary Swank show up in a backwards hat if she
That'd be great. Melissa? I would love that. I'll take Akilah with my last pick, just because I think she's pretty likely to die, but she's the most fun. Well, kind of most fun is probably Laura Lee. Yeah, I hope she doesn't die. So we'll take Akilah.
I'm a fellow animal lover, of course.
Seems important at this point.
She's very important.
Okay, so I still think Melissa is Hillary Swank. I think it's stalking her. And let's actually let's feed this into who killed Lottie, because I think I can't confirm that I officially said this, and so we'll officially credit this theory with one Will,
Mhm.
named person on this podcast. Sorry to steal a joke from Dr. Amanda. Your husband Will,
Mhm.
who thinks that potentially Callie killed Lottie because she intercepted the tape, and the tape says essentially go kill Lottie, or implicates Lottie in some way, in which Callie decides to go kill Lottie.
Correct.
I like this theory a lot, actually.
I think not a ton of people are looking at Callie, right? We have so many reasons to point to a lot of the Yellowjackets, most of them being in very close proximity to where Lottie was at the time of her death, a lot of them being in New York City. But I don't think we should forget that we know Callie knows how to get into the city. She went to that Halloween party in the city. She's close enough to be able to go there. We have not seen the tape that she received a few episodes ago in a while. I mean, the show doesn't often do flashbacks that aren't all the way back to the 90s, but it could happen where we are getting information after the fact that Callie already has off of the tape. And I don't know. I do think there is something going on this season where Callie and Shauna are almost on parallel paths in a way. We're seeing them connect in ways they haven't previously, and Callie kind of has spent her entire life in the shadow of Jackie in a way, right? Like Jackie is the entire reason that Callie and Shauna don't have a closer bond. Shauna and her experiences in the wilderness have kept made her keep Callie at arm's length. And so what if this is a way for Callie to like somehow get closer to Shauna, or she's promised that like this is a necessary thing, maybe she's being indoctrinated somehow. I think this is a totally viable theory, especially Grace, because I don't think I think it's one of those things that when looking back, maybe we'll like have noticed other things leading up to it that we didn't on first watch. And that like when it actually does get revealed that it's Callie, we'd be like, oh yeah, it feels like a viable option.
Um, there was some chatter in the YouTube comments from our episode 4 discussion between this is the best thing about doing like username stuff, is this is between Goth Angel 261 and Glittering underscore Darkness. This was a combo that
Ooh,
happened
glittering dark.
where Glittering Darkness comes up with a different theory, which I'll get to in a bit, but eventually they sort of talk about the tape that got left, and Glittering Darkness says, if it's not this other person, which I'll get to, then it was Callie. They meet up. Lottie is all, you're the chosen one, blah, blah, blah. Callie is like, wow, my mom is right. You're crazy. Get away from me. Push, whoop, bloop, splat, RIP is literally how that is written, which is maybe my favorite thing ever. Then Callie called Shauna, who's now covering for her. No way. Shauna went all the way to New York for a fake karma cat. So, yeah.
Fair. Very fair. And I'm really enjoying not that this isn't much of a theory thing, but I'm really enjoying us getting such stark differences between Jeff and Shauna, and how Jeff honestly and truly does feel like he needs good karma and Shauna is almost like performing acts of service to get karma points. Now, possibly she did go into the city and kill Lottie and then is like, "Well, my alibi will be this rescue cat." Um, I mean, I think that's a possibility. We've had a lot of people, Grace, and I've seen a lot of discourse online saying Shauna is the big bad. We've talked about it. We've talked about the possibility of Shauna being the Antler Queen in the very first scene we watch of Yellowjackets involving Pit Girl, that we think Shauna is the one in charge at that point. Certainly seems like we're trending in that direction, that Shauna is gaining power over Nat. And Grace, we've always kind of insinuated ever since season 2 that the Antler Queen is kind of an elected official, that it's not a position that you hold in perpetuity.
Yeah, it gets sort of, well, I mean, in terms of perpetuity, is interesting whether or not it's like, I guess I don't know. This is interesting in terms of Lottie's belief in how the sort of leader gets chosen. whether or not it is a like I don't know that we have whether or not it's like it rotates or they've just never found the right person. Like, did they think they had the right person? Right.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't think it was like I maybe I should rephrase. I don't think it's necessarily like a democracy.
no, I
Um
agree with that. I agree with that. It's whether, like, I think there's a question whether or not do they does do they believe that at different times the wilderness is choosing a different leader, or are they trying to figure out like, oh, we thought it was Nat, but like it's not Nat. You know what I mean? Like, how are they?
yes.
Yeah, what's their belief system? I guess is what I'm
That's the
asking.
thing. I think every person you ask might have a different answer. I
Right.
think if you ask someone like Lottie, she'd probably say, "Well, the wilderness chose Nat, and but maybe the wilderness is now choosing Shauna." And I think if you were to ask someone like Melissa, it's more like, "Well, Shauna is the one asserting her dominance and taking control, so I will follow her." And I think like there's a lot of it talk this season, right, with the wilderness and it chooses and who is it going to choose next. I love the interpersonal conflict stuff we're getting this season of the fallout of Nat being the leader and how that is affecting people like Ty and Lottie and Shauna, who were all potential options to be Antler Queen. And frankly, Grace, I would say we were very bullish on one of those three being the Antler Queen over Nat up until Nat is the one who's chosen. So I could see Shauna being like the big bad of the series. Um Obviously it's super complicated in terms of is she a villain? How would you classify her? I don't think it's easy to, nor do I think it's really necessary to like classify her in any particular way, mostly because everything she went out there is so that happened to her out in the wilderness is so traumatic. You can't really blame her for being a little bit of a monster, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I still find her incredibly fascinating to watch, and, maybe that's my Melanie Linsky, Sophie Nélisse bias, but
We've
it's
been
not my
we've
fault they're
been
so good,
we've been told we have Melanie Linsky colored glasses on, is what we've been told.
and they're very fashionable,
They
I will
look so good, Rocktail Tiger. Um, Let me okay, I think so then also I wanna bring up this comment from, Will I Am Copeland, who's not named
not my
Will
husband,
of
yeah.
not your husband. Well, Will, yeah, I don't just don't tell Will. He says a lot of the somethings have turned out to be nothings, or at least a figment of their imagination. Adam, the blackmailer, the breaks, the freezer, the waiter, the reporter. I'm wondering if this is the theme. These things are almost self-fulfilled prophecy. And I think in terms of we talked a little bit about the theme of the show being um, religion versus science. I'm gonna like say that there's like a step further that I want to talk a little bit about this theme in particular, which is I think even more so than whether you believe in religion or whether you believe in science, and then getting a direct answer about that. It's actually about power structures and how people use one or the other for their own gain or necessity, or
Mhm.
how your belief system blinds you to the ways in which you can be influenced by power, corruption, etc. So Shauna to me is the best example. And I do think being basically from what we think halfway through the entire run of this show, I think it is fair. And I think we're in terms of the joke about us having Lindsay colored glasses on, I do think last episode in the recap, we explore this idea a little bit. So I don't think we're entirely just like Shauna's good. I think we talk about and I think it is fair to for people to ask themselves whether or not you are harsher on other if you are sort of like a Shauna defender or you're against Shauna, are you too lenient or too hard on Shauna for whatever bias people might have? Are you
Right.
finding it very easy to like pick on Shauna compared to like I think somebody a couple weeks ago said like I want to have empathy for Misty, but also she like broke the transponder, So I think that
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
fair. To me, I think about the way to me the trial episode is such the best example of I think the themes of the show in which Shauna is finally able to like exert some control over the way things work. And are people, and I do feel like Shauna is potentially being positioned as the, whether or not she's the biggest villain, I think that there is a level of selfishness that she exhibits, that she uses other people. I think Lottie has a fundamental belief in what she's doing. That doesn't mean what she does is not wrong, but there is a level of um understanding I can have for the way Lottie goes about things in a way that I have and I mean, like, the alternate side of that for Shauna is like the defense of why she does all these things is for her own survival. And you look at how much trauma and death she's been surrounded by. Um, but at the same time, I do think the themes of the show are like, what are people, how do people contort these power structures to potentially their own advantage or blinded by them? I think Lottie potentially is blinded by her belief system. They all could be theoretically, even Van, right? Like if she believes that she's almost died,
Right.
if not for the wilderness, then she is also willing to go along with the idea of the wilderness. Um, and I think that the biggest piece for me is that we're missing this big, again, I go back to like, we're pretty close to the time where it's like, this stuff is like pretty indefensible in terms of things that they've done out there. But I
Sure.
do think it gets worse. But yeah.
Right. You've talked a lot about the what is it that they did out there that is so bad? Obviously cannibalism is bad, but you can justify it in that they're starving, they need to eat. What is it else that what else have they done out there that is so atrocious that no one can find out? Yeah, I think what I love so much about this show and other shows that are able to do the same thing is having people not be black and white, right? Like it's not, I can't hate Shauna because she did something bad because I've seen all the stuff that's been done to her and that has happened to her and that is no fault of hers. Maybe it is the wilderness bringing out the worst in her, like letting her bad sides show. And then she's just kind of had this, not enough therapy when she returned home and all of that, right? I like that people are talking about it. I think it's really interesting. And I think, you're out in the wilderness for what, like 19 months? Maybe you do become the worst version of yourself. It's certainly possible. So I'm really excited to see what else we're gonna get from Melanie Linsky and Sophie Lisa's Shauna. I personally love her as a character. I'm endlessly fascinated by her, and I think she obviously has always been one of the main characters, but we're seeing her take a turn this season that is darker than she's ever been before, right? Like the Melissa stuff and the Achilles tendon stuff, all that stuff is like so much. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that we certainly, I feel like the part of the show that has worked the least well is the like the potential of the story being more public in the modern day. And I'm wondering how you sort of like, because I feel like that being like sort of the leading motivation for a lot of the modern day stuff in season one is where I most feel like the show wasn't working in terms of like the Jessica Rabbit stuff and the Adam stuff and the potential that he was some sort of like, spy or journalist or whatever. In season two, I feel like the culmination in the like the Yellow Jackets trying to figure out what was going on and what was happening, I think was some of the best modern day content we
Mhm.
had gotten, and moving in a direction um uh, as over the course of the show. But like where we're going, like it does feel like we can't not go back. Like we definitely have to have like Shauna, Thaisa, Van,
We have to go back.
Misty back out in the wilderness at some point. But
Mhm.
like what is the driving force behind them? Like what are they all like? So currently you have, I think, Thaisa and Van most in the camp of like it's real. And I feel like they likely will be the most in the vein of like, we have to keep doing stuff to make sure that we suppress it. I think Van, especially. And then you think about Thaisa probably being other Ty almost the entire time, if not the whole time. I think
I
we
think
got some of
so.
that feedback as well. If Shauna never believed it to be true, how does she go along with this? And I feel like a breaking point could be like, oh, look how much it's messing Callie up.
I was gonna say, if
Yeah.
anything pulls her in, maybe Callie goes along and then Shauna is forced to go with her, right? Like, I could see a world where they bring Callie out into the wilderness, or Callie wants to go, or Callie hides away and finds a way there, and Shauna is forced to go to
Yep.
protect her. I don't see any other reason Shauna would really do. When I look at who remains on the board, who would Shauna want to protect more than Callie? No one. No one, no one else. I think like Van and Ty have each other. Misty, we've seen how Shauna feels about Misty. I just think that like Callie would be the reason that she would return.
What I think what is interesting is I go back to this thing I've been saying about how I think Shauna will defend the things that she did to make sure she's not seen as a bad person, right? I think
Yeah.
that that's like kind of her driving force is to be like, no, we did what we had to do to survive, and that's sort of like the company line, and we have to keep that. And if that's why
Mhm.
I quite like Callie being involved in what happened to Lottie, maybe more so than it being other Ty. Although I think if you could do like both of them, like if there's something where it's like other Ty and Callie involved, and that's quite interesting. Like there's something to that that's quite
Ooh,
interesting.
yeah, I like that.
Um, and I like it because I think you need to put Shauna in a position where she basically has to continue to try and like make sure that none of this gets out. And so if you think about the way in which like if Lottie is responsible for, or if Callie is responsible for Lottie's death, then that then opens up a can of worms in which like if Callie gets investigated for that or is on trial, that potentially opens up a lot of yellow jackets, you know, prying eyes that probably Shauna does
Mhm.
not want, right? And probably gets sort of like sucked back into this like level to which we have to do things to make sure nobody ever knows what's happened. And where I see the collision and why I like the Lottie or the Callie Ty stuff connecting is because I already see, I think, pretty well where Shauna and Misty and then they are ready for a head-on collision, Jess, between the two of them. And it all is kind of tied up in what Shauna thinks about Misty's identity. And actually that being a lot of like, I think maybe you're saying stuff about me that you actually is true about you, right? This is like I think
Mhm.
like we see this a lot where people will accuse something. It's like, I think you might be, that actually might be something that applies to you. Or Shauna thinks Misty is kind of an awful person and articulates this to her face. I think we are going to at one point see the day in which Misty does not take that anymore and calls out Shauna for exactly who she is, which feels bad for like as much as I think Misty is dangerous, Shauna is the most dangerous, and calling out
Oh,
Shauna is bad.
certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly, right? Like Misty had a lot of issues before the plane even crashed, right? Like she takes no time at all ruining, destroying the transponder. Shauna, like her evilness, badness, whatever you would dark side was dormant prior to being out in the wilderness. That doesn't mean that by the time they both leave, they're both not really awful, right? Like, especially now, I think Shauna, I think she's able to hide it a bit more. Oh, I'm just a housewife, my husband and my daughter, and on and on and on. Misty lets her freak flag fly for the most part. That is difficult to say. Lets her freak flag fly for
Yep.
the most part. Um, she's right there out there with her weirdness. I think Shauna is able to deceive others into thinking that she is just more of your like average person. And I would be so fascinated to see. And I think we've gotten glimpses of it when Lottie gives Callie the necklace and Shauna sees it and freaks out on her, right? Like we've gotten glimpses of wilderness Shauna, of like no holding back Shauna. And I'm going to be so interested to see if we get to see Melanie Linsky really go all the way with it in the same way that we have seen in the wilderness version of Shauna. I think it's very likely it will happen, and I agree with you that I think Misty being involved and just pushing her to the brink is super likely, especially because Grace, prior to Lottie dying, I would have argued like Lottie's going to be the one to push her over the edge.
And I also think the way that this intertwines is that I feel like Shauna wants to exert control, and she did that in the trial by using that mechanism. I feel like we're moving to the thing where she's going to use Lottie's belief system to make sure that like she survives and everybody that she wants to survive survives at the expense of anybody else. She will become the Antler Queen to basically say, this is how I will assert control. She is basically like kind of, I mean, she plays but they all agree that they're going to do the hunt, but they're not actually going to do the hunt. They're going to do it until we get Lottie some help, and then ends up like Nat dies. I could see a world where in the modern day, Shauna decides to like re-implement and take control over the sort of power structure, essentially to get rid of Misty, right? To be like, if you think I'm bad, then I'm gonna say we have to draw cards. I'm gonna make sure you draw the card and we kill you. Like that's how I think.
And
like,
we've seen that before, right? We're not necessarily that aspect, but we've seen them definitely messing with the cards to give Crystal and Misty like poop bucket duty.
right.
Duty.
Duty. All right, let's talk a little bit about the sounds, because I feel like the water, the screaming sounds, that's been a thing that people have been quite honed in on. As a thing that I feel like we've basically, I mean, we know that these cave systems exist and that there's a lot of theories that like, are they being poisoned? But there are some theories about the mining, the screaming sounds, etc.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the possibility of mining and mercury poisoning, and that's how the gas is making them hallucinate, right? It's all mining. People are really like, I feel like I've seen even way more people latching onto the mining theory. On Reddit, user Snackies had a theory that the sound, the sound that they think the trees are screaming, right? Travis talks about it in his vision. They hear it when they're doing their little memorial service or whatever it is. This person says, I think it's fracking. My partner and I were discussing the possibility of distant active mining operations or something that would cause shaking sounds and be responsible for the gas. We were getting really deep thinking about the tunnels and how sound would travel. And then he found this clip of fracking sounds. It was recorded just to demonstrate how loud fracking is, how disruptive and alarming. It can also cause seismic activity. Now, I'm going to play this noise because it does sound a lot like the noise they heard in the distance. So this is what it sounds
Be
like.
warned, listeners. Oh my god. No, not too much.
It's like nails on a chalkboard.
That's awful.
But doesn't it sound kind of like that screaming noise they heard?
Yeah, so if we think that they're in like Alberta, northern Alberta, fracking has been done in Alberta since 1953. So I don't know necessarily like the logistics of like whether that specific location that was like it's the Pembina oil field in 1953, how much, but basically since 1953, Alberta has fracted 170,000 wells. So it's definitely a thing. It could be a thing that happened, you know, in terms of the location they are. I think we think that they're in Alberta. I guess there's a small chance that they're in BC, but and if they are, same thing. There's been fracking that's happened in BC, but Alberta is really like the place for like oil in Canada, especially. It's been the talk of the town recently, as the premier of Alberta has said that oil tariffs will not go into place, but not to get into politics, but it's definitely like the right location for that kind of stuff to be happening. So.
Exactly. And I feel like because people have been so high on the mining theory of there's tunnels and the hallucinations and the gas and everything, this fits right in with that. And this, I guess, would be, Grace, if you are more in the camp of there's nothing supernatural happening, everything is real, everything they're experiencing is real, there's a rational explanation for it. This feels right up your alley. If this is that, if that's how you feel, if you are the person of science, if you are in that camp, this theory works well with that.
Yeah, I feel like that's been sort of like and I feel like there's really, I don't know, what side are you on? You think, what side do you think there are explanations for things, or you don't think there are explanations for things?
I generally am a very logical person, I would say. I like to be more on the rational side of things.
Mhm.
I think it's I'm gonna fall in the camp of like 80% of it is real and logical, but there is that like 20% of like mysticism that can't be accounted for, I think is where I land. What about you?
I want everything to be explained by something that's not
Mm,
supernatural. That's
yeah.
what I think the show is more interesting to me as a character study than as a supernatural show.
That's fair.
But it's fine. It doesn't have to be that way for me to enjoy it. It's just the thing. And I feel like most comments that I see, at least in my bubble, are on that side of that as well. That people I think want it to be like, is the yellow tint, is that because they've been like, are they like poisoned, is it,
Yeah.
mercury poisoning, or whatever type of thing to make them believe like that there's like a hint of truth to it, but it's not exactly how it happened, etc., etc. So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. um okay, the last one is like maybe what's happening with coach Ben. What do you think is he's had his tendon cut and seemingly can't run. What's the fate of Coach Ben, you think?
So many people think he's gonna die. I think it could be as simple as like, are they about to kill him? Granted, we are months away from them being rescued in the 90s timeline, but like, is he about to be killed and then they get rescued or something and he just doesn't get rescued? Like, it's just there's something there. He's been so close to death so many times. Are you really telling me that this man like doesn't make it out at this point? Are we actually going to kill him? Like, what are we doing here?
There's a lot of theorizing that maybe Ben gets out another way as well. That like maybe he's
Through
separate.
the
Maybe he
tunnels.
gets yeah, and he gets rescued separately. I mean, he becomes very important in the last episode in terms of he's like the bridge. He's the way that they potentially get back. So I know that they tried to send, this is how Van gets hurt, right? Is that they try to send, is it Thaisa or Van who tries to like go walk to find rescue, right? They go to like leave and then
Oh,
they get
It's both of them. Taissa
both
has
of
the
them.
plan and Van goes with her as well as a couple others. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Misty is included in that.
Seems like sending
Uh
Ben off with
yeah.
a, a snapped Achilles tendon is a bad idea, but
I mean, yeah, a man can
so
barely
let's
walk
do
like
this though. Like
this.
how do you think like so if that's true, I mean, the dreams are the thing that probably the most like I don't understand how there's a logical connection other than coincidence. Like there's not a thing you can be like, oh yeah, of course, like somebody knew that he had a walkie-talkie. It's like I don't even know how we do this. But what do you make of like Ben is the bridge?
Ben is the bridge. Yeah. I think I truly don't think he actually is the bridge. Like, I think it's more of a we feel guilty. Like, we feel guilty. We are going to kill this man and blame him for starting the fire in the cabin. And maybe he didn't. Like, there's tons of people also who think that the cabin was burned down just because, a rogue ember flies out of the fire, or they didn't clean the chimney and it starts on fire. Like, there's so many rational explanations for why a cabin can catch on fire. I think it could just be like, Akila and Lottie have reasonable doubt that it wasn't actually Ben, and it's their subconscious coming through. Um, but certainly there could be he could be the bridge, but in what way, right? Like,
So my theory on this would be that it's connected to Paul or Ben's family in some way, that like they are the ones who like fund the rescue
mm,
mission who that actually is successful. So it's
it's a great
like
idea. Paul gets a lot of mentions, even though we haven't seen him in a very like we've seen a couple flashbacks with him, but it's been a minute, and Ben is still mentioning him.
the way that like that like makes sense and doesn't make sense is like just because Coach Ben died doesn't mean that they're like his family wouldn't search for him or something. So it almost like he
Mhm.
needs to like, or more so like he needs to do the thing that gets them like, like is he at, do they make him like climb a thing where he's there and then he's seen like, whatever thing, I don't know. But I wonder about like, could it actually be like he's one of the few people who we've like really dived in on his home life, and ultimately like Paul gives him the ultimatum, but then knowing that like that doesn't mean that's like the Paul
Yeah.
wouldn't, try to mm, push people to like look for his ex, and maybe even at the extent of like, outing him set like Paul, outing Paul and Ben maybe potentially. So that's the one thing that I would of like is it like a connection to Ben that is the reason they get like the rescue mission actually happens, which like partially doesn't like you would think like if you kill Ben and Ben's family still, it's not like well Ben's dead, like they wouldn't know, so they're not like they wouldn't stop searching for him. But that was my thinking there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because you'd think of all the people to fund a rescue mission or be
Jackie's
super
family
involved.
or whatever. Yeah.
Lottie's family is
But maybe
super
his
rich.
family has maybe Paul's
Connections of
dad
some
is a
sort.
helicopter pilot or like so
There's
you
ways
know.
you can make it work for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Um
Yeah, he
yeah.
could be the bridge. He could be the bridge.
Well, he is the bridge. I believe that he is the bridge. So
Mhm.
we'll see. Anything else? I'm just gonna quickly. A lot of people are recommending we watch Twin Peaks, and I have an update. I've watched the first episode of Twin Peaks, so I'm doing it.
What'd you think,
Um,
Grace?
oh, it's very good. It's very fun. The thing is, I have to tell you, expectation setting is tough. It's very much ahead of its time. It's also a show that was made in 1990, and so
Mhm.
I will stick with it because I know people love it. But it's like, was it the greatest episode of television I've ever seen? Like, sorry, no. But I will stick with it because I heard people love it, and I did like it.
Yeah.
It's just is
Okay.
yeah. I think that those are about. I think that's like sort of what we found on Reddit, what I saw from um the YouTube comments, and I think we talked about anything that was flagged to us in the Discord. I think so.
Yes.
Any final notes, Jess, before
No,
we?
if you want, if you have any other theories, please send them in. You can hit us up, find us on social media. I'm at Jess Sterling, and write a YouTube comment. Let us know because I love theorizing about this show and I love reading theories. So if you have a hot, spicy take, I want to hear it.
Oh,
Send it
yeah.
in.
Sorry, I do have so it was Luke, our friend Luke, who said that maybe Ben escapes separately and then
Mm-hmm.
he's the one who like gets them back, right? So if he figures out a way out
So
and then
he's the
he goes
bridge.
back,
Yeah,
so he's the bridge. He could also be the person hunting Shauna in the present.
possible.
A lot of talk about like we didn't really talk about who did the cabin. I think like Van says at one point in one of the 3 episodes, like, don't you just want to burn this whole place down? I think it's definitely other Ty who did it, but some people thinking it could have been natural causes. So that's out there. And yeah, the other one was like whether other Ty killed Lottie, which Luke
Mm-hmm.
thinks it's probably other Ty. But the other one that's thrown around a lot is that it was actually Lottie did kill herself. Is a
It's
prominent theory I saw,
possible.
and she
Yeah.
did it to like she sacrificed herself, or she did the same thing. Travis tried to
I
do
would
like
just say that the
a
evidence
Travisy
doesn't
thing.
really support like the nail scrape on the walls feels a little strange if you did it intentionally, but I mean, it could be. Could
Yeah.
be.
So those are
Yeah.
the other theories floating out there. I'm on social media at Hi From Grace or Go From Grace. Make sure you check out my content on parade.com about Yellowjackets, and I'll check the YouTube comments as well for notes. And just we do just as a little insights. We tend to record a little bit early, so we might be a little bit delayed in reading your
Mhm.
feedback, but we do read it, and it is appreciated.
It's
Appreciated.
both.
Jess, what else you got going on?
You could find me over on Shit 90 Shows Taught Me talking about Buffy. We are just starting season 4 of Buffy, which is really fun. I was actually in the middle of an episode earlier today, and Buffy's roommate really sucks.
Hmm.
Which, I guess happens when you go to college. You can also
I
hear me
hated
talk.
my roommate.
Did you?
He slept naked. He slept during the day and was up all night. And he was an aspiring DJ, and he would play music on his thing, and it would bleed out of his headphones.
This sounds like what you would write down as all the worst traits and qualities of a roommate.
If you're listening, just kidding, pal. But if you're not,
If you're
I
listening,
didn't hate
just
him. It was
kidding.
it was just a rough first
I hate
year.
him for you.
No, I didn't hate him. I don't hate him either.
You could also find me talking about Schitt's Creek over on Talkin' Shit and podcasting about The Last of Us over on Look for the Light. So check
It's
out
coming
all
back.
that stuff. Coming back
Speaking
soon.
of good TV, there's so much good TV coming
So
back.
much good
Andor,
TV.
The Wheel of Time, The Last of Us, this
Yeah.
Righteous Gemstones. If you're a Righteous Gemstones fan, there's a lot coming. So if you are watching all that TV, but you choose to watch Yellow Jackets and choose to listen to us, I just want to give you a tremendous thank you because we appreciate it so much because it's surreal that
Yeah.
people want to listen to us blabber about this show. So appreciate folks listening. And we'll be back next time with our episode 6 recap of Yellow Jackets season 3. Until then, a licky boom boom down.